Brittney Griner just apologized Caitlin Clark and then retire from the WNBA. You heard that right after a decade of dominating headlines and drawing down the kind of dogs that put her in a league of her own. Brittney Griner bowed out not with a farewell tour or victory lap, but with a public apology and a sudden exit. No, the press conference, no celebration, just fallout. What happened? Simple. The moment to define Griner's downfall was an injury or even her aging game. If you're here for the real story and not filtered version, subscribe. And if you're sticking around for the next meltdown, you better definitely subscribe. It was a meltdown that went viral in a season already buzzing. Retention. Griner was caught on camera hurling racial slurs at Caitlin Clark during a heated on-court altercation. The footage spread like wildfire. And just like that, everything changed. Fans were stunned. Sponsors pull back. The league went into PR lockdown, and Griner, she became the face of everything the WNBA do want to be associated with: bitterness, chaos, and conflict. For years, Griner was a WNBA's 7-foot icon with game presence and power. But this wasn't the same. Griner, her minutes were dropping, her impact was fading, and a spotlight it clearly moved on to younger stars like Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese, who brought fresh energy, massive fan bases, and none of the drama. That apology, it didn't come off as heartfelt, it came off as damage control. Too little, too late. The incident had already split the fandom, and Clark, well, as you wonder not, was cast as a new symbol of the league's future. Griner's career, once fueled by dominance, was now drowning in controversy. And let's be real, Griner's retirement wasn't some graceful goodbye, it was a strategic retreat. The lead didn't push her out, but they didn't exactly beg or to stay. They either with the WNBA chasing growth, branding, and a broader audience. They needed a clean slate. Griner's presence had become too much baggage, and the apology was just a last-ditch prefer. The whole thing unraveled now. She's shifting to streaming and trying to rebrand herself online, but the legacy that it's already written. She went from trailblazer, the cautionary tale. And while Clark continues to break viewership records and sell out arenas, Griner's exit is a stark reminder that dominance doesn't guarantee dignity, and relevance doesn't last forever. Sometimes you leave the game, other times the game leaves you. Brittney Griner exit from the WNBA wasn't a farewell tour anyone expected. No jersey retirement tour, no heartfelt montage, is no locker room tears aired on ESPN. Just a quiet, awkward apology, a benching, and then gone after dominating headline for now nearly a decade. As when the WNBA most recognizable names, Brittney Griner, his career didn't in a high note, it ended in controversy, regret, and league as he more than ready to move on without her. At one point, Griner was a league, the dunks, the height, the dominance in the paint. She was a post, a child of physical posts and of style of play that defined the league's early 2010s. For years, her presence commanded respect. She wasn't as a player, she was a brand. But the lead changed, the pace got faster, the game moved. The perimeter players like Caitlin Clark redefined the playbook, would range tempo. Oh, and a different kind of leadership, one that didn't rely on hair physicality, but on agility, vision, and IQ. The fans responded, so did the media, and suddenly Griner wasn't a face the league anymore. She wasn't even in the spotlight. And then came the moment that sealed her fate, a game or heated moment, a physical altercation. But it wasn't just about a hard foul, it was about what was said. Brittney Griner, in the middle of an on-court confrontation with Caitlin Clark, was caught on tape using racial slurs. The footage spread like wildfire. Social media erupted. Analysts condemned it. The league issued statements, but staged as vague enough to avoid direct accountability. But fans weren't buying PR dance. Griner's reputation, already weathered by visible decline in performance, imploded. The narrative shifted fast. No longer the misunderstood veteran, no longer the league's anchor. She became a symbol. What the WNBA was dragged away from bitterness, conflict, and outdated energy. And just like that, the writing was on wall. All benched, isolated. Then finally, she made her move. Brittney Griner retired. No big announcement, no emotional press conference, just a quiet acknowledgement. An even quieter exit tacked onto and a media cycle that already moved on to Clark's next headline or Angel Reese's highlight reel. But before leaving, Griner issued one final statement, a public apology to Caitlin Clark. It was short, it was stiff, but it was significant. She acknowledged your heated words, confirmed the authenticity of the footage, and expressed regret for how she conducted herself in a moment that should have been about competition, not conflict. She stopped short guy what was racist. For many the apology itself was a last-ditch effort to salvage what was left of her legacy, and still for many fans was too little too late, because the apology didn't erase the months of tension, and it didn't do the narrative that Griner have been struggling to. It just not just the new piece of game, but to the new culture of the league. She became the face of resentment in a moment. When the league was desperate for unity, her career, once groundbreaking, is now bookmarked by a cautionary tale about ego, about change, about what happens when stars can't or won't adapt. The league is moving in a different direction. Young, energetic market. Well, town is being fast-tracked into the spotlight. Clark, Reith, Boston. These are players that WNBA sees as its future players, who connect with fans, generate headlines, and bring new eyes to the game without the baggage. The shift is internal, and it's overdue, because what the Griner saga exposed wasn't as one person's downfall. It was a cultural pivot. The WNBA, whether by design and necessity, is rebranding. It's distancing itself from the old guard, the dramatic meltdowns, the entitlement, the idea that visibility is owed rather than earned. Brittney Griner, his career didn't collapse overnight. It was great, agile, a slow slide from relevance to resentment, from dominance to damage control. Any altercation with Clark was just a final crack that broke the whole thing open. From there, everything unraveled. Her Twitch streams, transparent attempt at rebuilding fan trust, her publicist's new chapter mess, aging brushed aside by fans who had already moved on. Her farewell from the league overshadowed by Clark's triple-double and Reese's endorsement deal. Griner's story became a case study and what not to do when the league changes and you don't change with it, because it wasn't just about age. Plenty of veterans have graceful the handed off the baton. It was about energy. She clung to a version of league that no longer exists, and when a younger, more dynamic generation stepped in, her response wasn't grace, it was aggression. That's the legacy now. Not the dunks, not the records, not the Olympic medals, but the coffee, tea, Asian, the meltdown, the exit. And for a lead Trigro to globalize, to shake off its niche status, this kind of controversy is exactly what they want to avoid. The new era as clean Polish media trained and viral ready. There's no room for old school drama disguise as intensity. Grinders down or is a lesson and adaptability and timing, and knowing when to speak and when to step back, and understanding that legacy isn't just about what you do in your prime, but how you carry yourself in your decline. Caitlin Clark didn't ask for this drama. She became the lightning rod because she represented change, fresh eyes, new energy, and some veterans couldn't stomach that. But the league made its choice. It chose Clark, it chose Reese, it chose for momentum, and Griner, she chose bitterness, then silence, then the door. Now the league's message is clear: evolve or exit. And Brittney Griner just gave everyone a clear view what the exit looks like. It's not applause, it's not flowers, it's not a retirement video played on the Jumbotron, and a cautionary tale. And while some will say Grounder's legacy is still intact, her early achievements, her role and growing the sport is neither. The last chapter rewrote that told the entire story. She had the chance to mentor the next generation. Instead, she resented them. She had the opportunity to be remembered as a pioneer. Instead, she's now remembered for the push, the slur, and the fallout. The league is moving forward with or without her. And if there's one thing every athlete should take from this, is that talent can make you a star, but how you handle transition defined your legacy. So what's next for the WNBA? More Clark, Maurice, more spotlight on players who understand you. Simon, grow the game, not your ego, and maybe just less tolerant for those who can't let go the past. If you follow Brittney Griner, his career from a rise or fall, drop your thoughts in the comments. Did her apology mean anything to you? Was her retirement inevitable, or was she pushed out by league desperate to clean house? Either way, hit the subscribe button, because the era of women's basketball is changing fast, and we are here. Follow every moment that flipped the script, and trust us, there's more drama on the way. Brittney Griner career was never supposed and like this. At one point, she was a very definition of WNBA dominance. She was a player who made highlights go viral before viral even meant anything. Her down to the headline, her presence was unmatched, her name synonymous with the league. But in the end, it wasn't her stats or game, or even her Asia push or out. It was her actions. What started as a competitive edge turned into a public spectacle. The incident with Caitlin Clark wasn't just another on-court confrontation. It was a final crack and foundation. They have been crumbling quietly for years. When Griner crossed that line, when she resorted to racial slurs, during a heated moment, the mask came off and fans saw what the league have been trying to suppress. The incident wasn't just about words, it was about timing. Caitlin Clark is the golden ticket, a ratings magnet, the league's new flagship, a rookie. You didn't show up, she took over. And when that kind of player becomes a phase of a new era, the league doesn't have time to entertain messy scandals or uncombed or optics. It has a direction, and veterans like Griner, who once held that torch, now at a choice: evolve, support, or step aside. But Griner couldn't do it. She couldn't share the spotlight. She can respect to shift. She lashed out instead. And that moment, that unfiltered, volatile moment, it sealed her fate. The public side, the league side, sponsors definitely saw it. And when the apology came later, it was damage control, not accountability. Fans weren't fooled. They saw through the performative regret. The apology, vague and corporate sounding, didn't land. It didn't carry the weight it needed to. And in a media landscape where authenticity is everything, a lack of real emotion or any real ownership only dug a hole deeper. Meanwhile, Caitlin Clark just kept doing what she always does, showing up, staying composed, leading. She never retaliated publicly. She didn't add fuel to the fire. She didn't have to the court, and headlines spoke for her. That's where the contrast hit the hardest. While Griner spiraled, Clark ascended. Her games became must-see TV. Her job Rosie sales skyrocketed. Her post-game interviews trended for all the right reasons. She was humble, she was focused, she represented the future. And in doing so, she made the old drama look exactly like when it was old. So Griner retired not because she wanted to, not because her body gave out, but because the league no longer needed her to headline it. And that's the painful truth. Her departure wasn't a celebration. It was a quiet exit, tucked under scandal and wrapped in disappointment. Her post-retirement Twitch streams, a clear attempt to rebuild her image in a low-risk, low-effort way. No press conference. Says no real accountability, just a soft pivot away from the backlash, hoping time, a distraction, would make people forget. But the internet doesn't forget. And neither do fans. They remember the moment Clark got shoved. They remember the slurs. They remember the silence from Griner's camp before the apology was forced out. They remember the shift, the exact moment the WNBA began pulling away from its veterans and placing full trust in its rising stars. And that's the moment Brittney Griner became example, the warning. She could have gone out like a legend. She could have men are the next wave. She could have turned the moment into growth. But instead she let resentment guide her, and now her legacy is a conversation filled with what could have been. That's not to say her impact has raised, her presence changed the game. Her early years were trailblazing. She brought eyes to the WNBA in a time when it needed them badly. But sports evolve, the conversation changes. And if you can have all with it, you get left behind, sometimes painfully, publicly, and permanently. The WNBA knew it had to move on. It saw a future build on players. Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese, women who are media-savvy, driven, and adaptable, women who don't just win the spotlight, they earn it consistently, cleanly, confidently. And when you look at how the league handled the fallout, it's clear where the priorities are now. There was no special tribute for Griner retirement, no fanfare, no league-wide send-off. The conversation had already moved past it. The press cycle belonged to Clark's triple-doubles and Reese's media appearances. The headlines had moved on. It was brutal, but it was strategic. The WNBA's try to grow to attract casual viewers, to get better TV deals. And when you're trying to become mainstream, you don't put your controversial pay front and center. You lean into your future stars, and Griner was no longer part of that plan. Her fall became a symbol, not just have a player losing relevant, but have a lead choosing growth over nostalgia, choosing polish over provocation, choosing Caitlin Clark over chaos. It's harsh, but it's real. And in that sense, Griner's story is a mirror for every aging star in professional sports. It shows what happens when you refuse to adapt, when you see new energy as a threat, not a torch to pass, when ego keeps you from seeing the bigger picture. In the end, the Game goes on with or without you grinders. Reardon in because she got old it ended, because she got bitter, she couldn't transition from the face of the lead to a mentor, she couldn't step back and upload the players who were driving the next era. And when she went down and go down fighting she went. Down swinging in the wrong direction, now her name. Urged the lead didn't even have to pick a side. Griner made the choice for them, and now a new generation is watching. They're seeing how the game treats those who embrace change, and how it handles those who fight it. They're learning that staying relevant means more than just having talent, it means showing character, especially when things get hard. So to the next batch of WBS stars, take notes, this is how legacy gets written, not a single moment, but in the way you respond to change, to rivalry, to pressure, to being challenged. Brittney Griner had every tool to remain a leader, but she chose resentment, and now she's not the face of league, she's a footnote in a much bigger story. What happened to Brittney Griner wasn't as a retirement, it was a reckoning. This was a woman who used to find dominance, who walked into arenas and made defenders flinch, who turned block shots in her personal branding. Brittney Griner was at one time the name casual fans knew. I'm not one of many the name, and yet she didn't leave the WNBA with applause, she left with whispers. That's the part that stings the most, not just for but for anyone who ever considered themselves untouchable in professional sports, because the fall doesn't come with warning signs or a soft landing. It comes fast, it comes public, and always uglier than you think it'll be, especially when it's your own actions that caused it. Brittney Griner wasn't pushed out because she slowed down, she was pushed out because when the moment came to show maturity, she lost control, because when the cameras caught or lashing out a key. Caitlin Clark, not just physically, but racially, the league couldn't protect her anymore. And honestly, they didn't try. There was no aggressive damage control, no league-wide show of unity, no stand by our sister campaign. Griner was suddenly alone, not in a literal sense, there was still people in our corner. But the shift was undeniable. The silence from the league spoke louder than anything she'd sit on court. Because at WNBA isn't just growing, it's transforming. The image is cleaner, the marketing is smarter, the league is investing in players we're not only talented but also marketable. Oil and like it or not, that means being controversy-free, that means media-friendly, that means being kind of player who can land in a Nike ad 1 minute and on a talk show the next. Clark fits that, such as Angel Reese, so does Aaliyah Boston. These women get the game on and off the court, and Griner, she became a risk, a walking headline for all the wrong reasons. The irony is brutal. The player who once brought attention to the WNBA now found herself too controversial to keep around. The league that once leaned on or star power was now carefully distancing itself, and Griner, where does she realize it or now, became the symbol of a bygone era, one that no longer fit the league's erection. And let's talk about the direction. The WNBA doesn't want drama, want growth, want viewers, sponsors, global reach, and it doesn't come from locker room meltdowns and post-game apologies. It comes from Polish stars who don't dominate court. They know how to navigate the media, the fans, the brand. That's why Caitlin Clark keeps rising. She didn't say a single word about Griner's incident. She didn't go on some revenge media tour. She didn't feed into the drama. She just kept playing, kept winning, kept showing up as a phase will leave. Big try to prove it's ready for the big stage. The calm, that restraint, that professionalism, that's what the league is betting on, and Griner couldn't meet that standard. Even or apology, clearly scripted, deeply uncomfortable, felt more like a resignation letter than a moment of clarity. There was no direct admission, no ownership, just vague regret package for a new cycle that was already moving on. And now she's gone, retired, not with pride, but with a whimper, not a farewell tour, but damage control. Exit. Let that be a lesson in this era. Women's sports legacy isn't guaranteed, is not enough to be great. You have to evolve. You have to know in the moment demands grace instead of aggression. You have to recognize when your chapter is closing and whether you're leaving it clean or leaving it scorched. Griner chose scorched, and the WNBA is already rebuilding over the ashes. There's no nostalgia tour, no call for reconsideration, just the sound of a new generation taking over. They're not waiting for approval, they're not afraid of the spotlight. They are the spotlight, and Clark, she's not to survive in the league she's read, finding it so as Griner exits the message is loud and clear: adapt or be forgotten, respect to shift or get steamrolled by, and most importantly know when to lift others instead of trying to knock them down. Because the league doesn't belong to any one player, not anymore, and if you want to be remembered as part of its history, you'd better make sure you remembered for the right reasons. Now it's your turn. Was Griner's downfall inevitable, or did you choose your own ending? Was the apology to Clark Genu